I saw on Facebook, yeah. Bezrat Hashem, I shall come home safely. Bezrat Hashem. Okay. So your name, remind me one more time? Chanoch. Okay, cool. All right, we're going to learn a little bit about our forefathers, and I want to make a disclaimer and make it very clear to everybody that when we try to speak about our forefathers, they are wholly beyond our imagination. We can't even understand, really. They were prophets. The prophets, the foundation of our entire religion, of our relationship with God. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, they all spoke with God. And even their wives also were prophetesses. And when the Torah tells us these stories about their lives, and they went here, and they said this, and they said that, the Torah definitely wants to give us messages which are, of depths, which are to no end. And we can't even claim to try to think that we figured it all out. We actually understand that exactly what was going on there and why the Torah is telling us this. The Torah can be read, as we know, on 4 levels. What are they called? Pardes, Pshat, Remez, Drash, and Sod. The simple meaning, the derivations, the hints, and even the Kabbalistic meanings of the Torah. So, Avram and Sarah and Leah and Yaakov, they all have a very, very in-depth Kabbalistic interpretations as well as the simple interpretations. And we try to learn from their lives. We try to learn from the story, the way the Torah presents it to us, on all those different levels. But it's not to say that when now I'm going to give the shir, I'm going to present one aspect of it so that we can learn from it. It's not that we have reached or understood exactly what was true about the full understanding of this relationship and how it comes. But one aspect of what we can learn from the Torah, I think that's what we're going to be doing today. It's Parshat Shavua, and Bereshit is just full of relationships, fathers and sons and children and wives and maidservants and international relations. There's just so much in the book of Bereshit is full. But this parsha in particular, this is a little bit shocking. It's a shocking. Is there another copy for Shai? You got? This should be another copy. It's a little bit of a shocking perush. That's why I'm giving you all these excuses before we start. Don't be taken aback and think that we are degrading in any way our forefathers. But we're trying to learn from them. Trying to learn something about for our lives what we can take from the way the Torah tells the story. There seems to be a few messages. Primarily, I'm going to be following the Netziv, Ha'amek Davar, the Rabbi Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin was his family name. He lived in Volozhin, in I think it's White Russia. And he was the head of the Volozhin Yeshiva before it closed, about 200 years ago, less, 150 years ago. And he wrote a commentary on the Torah based on every morning after davening, he gave a shir on Chumash, on the Parsha. And he went through the entire Torah and he wrote up his insights, and he was, one of the greatest minds of the century. Anyways, Ha'amek Davar is it's been translated to English. I don't know that the whole thing's been translated to English. I'm not sure. This piece, the first piece is I couldn't find the translation online, and so I'm going to translate it on the fly. The psukim are in English, but then his commentary is in Hebrew, and I'm going to translate for you, and we'll discuss it a little bit. Okay? The pasuk that we're starting with is when Yitzchak marries Rivka. Yitzchak then brought her into the tent of his mother Sarah, and he took Rebekah as his wife. Isaac loved her, and thus found comfort after his mother's death. We actually mentioned it last week. We said the Chazal speak about there were 3 signs that Yitzchak saw. We talked about it, no? That Right? Who knows what the three signs? That when his mother was alive on her tent, so he brought her into his mother's tent.
The candle still goes.
Candle lit from one Shabbat to the next. Candle stayed lit. What else?
The tent lit up.
Well, that's the light. Yeah.
Something about the bread.
The bread. There was bracha in the dough. The dough rose very nicely and was bountiful. And the third one is that there was anan kashur, that there was like a cloud over the tent. Whenever Sarah was living, his mother Sarah, she died. All those three things left. And when Rivka came back, all those three amazing miracles came back. All of them pretty much symbols of the Shekhinah, of the divine presence, and that's how he took comfort after his mother's death. But this week we're going to focus in on another word in this pasuk. It says, and Yitzchak loved her. He took Rebecca as his wife, and Yitzchak loved her. Says the Netziv, Vaye'aveha, Timizeh dichtiv vatihi lo liisha eino hochacha she'ava. The fact that he said he took her as a wife doesn't mean he loved her. Sharei haya mukhrach lisa'ena. He had to marry her. Ki lo benakel yimatzeh betula mimishpachto dafka. It was quite a hard thing to find a young maiden from his family. We know that Eliezer blessed his lucky stars that he was able to find this woman, and that God guided his hand, and that he was able to convince them to come. So, of course, he had to marry her. It wasn't. It was almost like it was arranged, a fixed marriage, right? By the Eved. Mishum hachi yotzrecha chituv l'faresh shematza mimena korat ruach. He actually did have tremendous joy. Me'ahava. It was because of his great love that he did find in Rivka that he was able to find comfort after his sadness because of his mother's death. And so the Netziv says it's important. The Torah points out that actually there was love. It wasn't just an arranged marriage. It had to be. He had to keep the line going. It did not take the benot chet. He didn't want intermarriage, assimilation into the Hittite women. It was arranged and it was a family. But Baruch Hashem, Yitzchak loved Rivka. First Netziv. Okay, so apparently, and that love is what gave him comfort. It's not the miracles, Shekhinah, cloud, light, that's all nice and spiritual, but maybe not comfort after your mother. So Chazal were saying the comfort was that it was a continuation of his mother, but what about the... Netziv takes a more down-to-earth type of approach, and he says if you want to have someone give you comfort, consolation on the death of a loved one, what gives you consolation is love. And so he felt love with Rivka. Beautiful, right? Now, we get to this week's Parsha. Actually, or yesterday's Parsha anyways, we see that Yitzchak and Rivka don't see eye to eye. What happened? What happened yesterday? Were you listening to the book being read? What are they? Quite a lot happens, but between them, sorry?
Difference of opinion between what to do with Yaakov. And who loves who? Esav.
They had their own totally different opinions. He loved Esav and she loved Yaakov, right? And then what? So what happens when he wants to give a bracha to Esav?
She has other ideas.
She has other ideas. That's right. And how does she go about putting those ideas into place?
She has her ways. She might have learned from Rabbi.
Tricky. She uses some deceit.
I think she had a sewing machine.
Yeah, she used her sewing. That's right. Hakol kol Yaakov, hayadayim idei Esav. It's the voice of Yaakov, but it feels like it's Esav. What's going on here? then doesn't, when you read this over and over every year, don't you like find yourself saying inside under your breath or in your minds, just like wanting to scream, why don't they talk to each other? Why don't Yitzchak and Rivka discuss it? Why does she have to trick him and make sure that, why, maybe she can convince Yitzchak that Yaakov is really the tzaddik and Esav is the rasha. What's all this trickery going on here?
They're not supposed to.
Not supposed to?
She got a revelation that he didn't get. So
Okay.
Hashem wanted him to know that.
All right. Maybe. Okay. What other reason? What are these things, Zachariah?
Maybe she also had because she got the revelation from Hashem, but also she had the intuition that she knew that this was the way to do it and not the other way. You know?
Okay, so, but why not tell him about it? Why not convince him? Okay, so fine, you don't want to say that you got the revelation, he'd feel bad. Although I don't really understand, would he feel bad? He'd be proud. His wife got a revelation. That'd be great. Sorry?
He's not meant to know.
He's not meant to know?
He's not meant to know.
Who says? Maybe, well, Hashem said many things to Avram, and he wanted Avram to go spread the word. If you got prophecy, wouldn't it be good to spread all the prophets are supposed to say their prophecy? Why didn't she tell her prophecy and tell him what was going on? And they could discuss it. He could say, well, I still think Esav is better because of that. And she would say, no, I'll show you. He does this, he does that. We don't see any of that. There's no conversation.
Well, her first revelation was that there were two Amin B'toch HaBeten Shela.
Mm-hmm.
And the Midrash says that when they would pass Avodah Zarah, a house of Avodah Zarah, one would get really, really excited.
Right.
And when they would pass, a place of Kedusha, the other would get excited.
Okay.
So then she realized this guy's really, he's connected to Avodah Zarah.
So why not tell Yitzchak though? That's my question. I know Esav's bad, but she should tell Yitzchak. Listen, you should know he's always going to the Avodah Zarah, and he's the tzaddik. Why don't you see it, Yitzchak?
Yitzchak already knew this, though.
I don't know. So why did he love Esav if he knew that? Yeah.
Maybe because the revelation to Rivka is.
One second. Uh-huh.
And
So he tricked him. So she could fight the trickery. She can't fight back against her son.
His firstborn son. He has like a blind spot.
Okay. I don't know.
He wants to believe the best in him. He thinks maybe he can fix it.
I don't know. When I teach couples before they get married, there's some shares here if you like. I think, and I've discussed it with other friends. In my books, number one key to having a good marriage is communication. To having good communication. Why doesn't she talk to him? It's like it's screaming at me. Why aren't they talking about it? She's tricking him, and then at the end, after the bracha is already given, and she's afraid that Esav's going to kill Yaakov, she doesn't go up to him and say, Esav's going to kill Yaakov. She comes up with a story. She says, I don't want him to marry somebody in the locals. We better send him off. She's not being straight. She's not being straight. I don't know, where's the clear communication in my book?
She's not being straight, but she's also preventing, I don't know if it qualifies in the family, but the chilut we were learning about in Prophet's time, but creating strife between the fathers and the sons, and making things more like an open, based off of her communication.
Well, it's an interesting question about Lashon Hara and Rechilud in the family. Clearly, though, when it's for the sake of utility, when it's for a purpose, there are instances where you're allowed to speak Lashon Hara, and especially in the family. It's not considered Rechilud. Rechilud is when you're spreading it around the country. The Chafetz Chaim speaks about that, and that's a whole other shir. But without getting into Lashon Hara, it's missing for me, this whole piece of this lack of communication, really, between Yitzchak and Rivka, is it gives birth to so much trouble and so much strife. He's got and cheating and deceitfulness.
Maybe she knew he wouldn't listen. Maybe she tried to talk to him in the past.
Maybe.
It's like,
Maybe. That's very sad, though. If it's true.
Maybe she has more gifts than he does. Maybe that's his blessing that he married a woman with
Could be.
clairvoyance.
It could be. It could be.
And that's why they're like the same bloodline.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. Yes,
I was thinking that she's not sure about the prophecy because it says that the arm. It says arm. It's not like the individual like. So I was thinking that maybe the prophecy is for the arm.
It's very interesting. Yeah, the prophecy definitely is a little ambiguous. For Avi Avot Ta'ir can be read backwards and forwards. It's for another shir,
They're
but
twins anyway, so it's like very deceptive.
Twins. Wow.
His name is trickery, so it's like how do you even
totally
gamble? How do you know who's the red or the black? It's like a roulette table. It's like
the content is not really my concern right now. In other words, for sure, that relationship between the brothers is fascinating, and how do we know who's right and all that. What bothers me is Yitzchak and Rivka. Why aren't they on the same page? Okay, but he brought her home. He loved her. Right, that's what we started with. The pasuk says that he brought her home. He loved her, brought her. He was comforted by her. They had a bond. They had a connection. So the Netziv has his a fascinating, a little bit radical interpretation that I'd like to share with you. Let's see it inside here. Rivka raised her eyes and saw Yitzchak. When was this?
When she fell off the
That's right. She fell off the camel. She saw him coming. She was brought in from Haran, and she saw Yitzchak. And she felt, why? As he still stood and prayed, he was then like an angel of God. Awesome. This is what I think Rashi brings this parish. Does Rashi bring that? That's why she fell off, because she saw him and she was so awestruck. Yeah? Is it not Rashi? I can't remember. In any case, there's one interpretation why she fell off the camel, because she was, not used to seeing such holy individuals. Let's see what the Netziv does with this. Vatipol me'al gamal. Mirov pachad ve'ima, because she was full of fear and awe. You can share together, Idan and David, you can share. Omnam lo yada mimi hi mitpachedet. She didn't know who she was awestruck from. Ve'ilu lo הייתה יושבת עם העבד, הגמל אחד, והייתה יושבת מאחריו, עד שראתה שאחר כך האיש הולך לקראת העבד, ועומד ומדבר עמו ככל האדם, והיה דעתה מתקרר בתוך כך, עד שבדעה אחר כך מי האיש, היה כבר שר הפחד ממנה. ובהיותה יושבת עם העבד, ובתוך הפחד שאלה את העבד מי האיש הזה, שאני מתפעל ומתפחד ממנו, כמובן בראשית רבה, בלשון הלזה, משמעו אדם מאוים ונורא. Okay, so this is not the critical part of what I want to teach. He's saying that the way she was sitting and the way the approach, when she was coming and saw him coming, it was like she was not expecting this guy to be the man that she's going to marry. And if it were, she would have had some time to get used to the idea and she wouldn't have been shocked by it. But right now, all she knows, because of the way that they were sitting, that's the way he describes it in the verses. She saw this man and she was awestruck from him. He seemed so maybe regal, holy, very spiritual and powerful man. And then when she hears that this is the guy you're supposed to marry, al ken kesheshama shehi isha vatikacha vatitkas. She took the handkerchief and she covered herself up. Why did she cover herself up? Why did she cover herself up? What does that mean? She covered herself up? She covered herself with her kafia. Burqa? Was she wearing a burqa? What? Maybe, but why? Oh, this is the man that you're going to marry. Now she covers herself up. What does this mean? Some people say because tzniut. She should be modest.
It's also privacy.
privacy for who?
For her.
That he shouldn't look at her.
If her emotions are all over her face, she doesn't signal everything to him. She wants to keep something.
Why not? If she's going to marry him, she should want to connect to him.
When she knows him, when she's she's afraid of him. So.
Right, so that's the key. So that's what the Netziv says. Pay attention now. Okay, Mirov pachad ubusha. She covered her face because she was full of fear and embarrassment. כמו שמבינה שאינה ראויה להיות לו לאישה. Because she felt that she was not worthy of being a wife to this holy, impressive man. This was the key factor that their relationship got off on the wrong foot, because she was awestruck. So much so that she felt that she's not worthy. You could say, what's the expression in English? He swept her off her feet. She swept her off her camel. Right? She was awestruck by him so much until she had to cover herself up because she felt she's not worthy. Ume'az v'hala, and from that time on, they say love at first sight. This was not love at first sight. This was awe at first sight. Me'az v'hala nikba beliba pachad. She had a certain fear in her heart. Ve'lo hayta im Yitzchak. And what that engendered is that she was not in her relationship with Yitzchak kemo Sarah im Avraham veRachel im Yaakov. The other forefathers and their wives, we see that they have a lot of talking between them. Sarah is telling Avraham, do this, do that. He likes it, he doesn't like it. Rachel telling Yaakov, do this, do that. Like she complains to him. We don't find that same relationship. Asher biyot lehem eze kpeida lehem lo boshu ledaber retet lifnehem. When they were upset when Sarah was upset at Avraham, she told him so. And when Rachel was angry at Yaakov, she said it quite clearly. But here, Rivka was afraid to speak up. Masha'enken Rivka. Why is this important? As I said before, this is not the only level of an understanding. We're trying to take it on face value in terms of personal relationships between Rivka and Yitzchak. The Netziv says there was some awe that was maybe out of place. It was not an ideal relationship because she was too afraid of him. And why do we need to know that? Why do we care? He says, this explains everything that I was asking you before. I'm reading inside. וכל זה הקדמה להסיפור שיבוא בפרשת תולדות. שהיו יצחק ורבקה מחולקים בדעות, מכל מקום לא מצא רבקה לב להעמיד את יצחק על דעתה בדברים נכוחים. They had different opinions about the children, Yitzchak and Rivka, and yet we don't see that Rivka went over to Yitzchak and said, listen, Yitzchak, I'll prove to you that Esau's the bad guy, Yaakov's the good guy, give the bracha to him, we should do this, we got to send him away. She doesn't tell him straight out, we don't see them discussing it. What does she do instead? כי היא יודעת האמת, כי עשיו רק ציד בפיו, וכן בשעת הברכות. We don't see her convincing, trying to tell Yitzchak that Esau's just tricking you. And regarding the brachot, they put on this whole charade with the fur and the meal which she prepares. Why is that? It only makes sense because she didn't have that clear communication with Yitzchak that you're supposed to have. That would have been. So they had love. That's what we started with. And Tziv says Yitzchak and Rivka had love, but they didn't have good communication. And there was too much of a fear element in there, and she couldn't speak up. And why? Why did the Torah create that? One thing's leading to the next. Says the Netziv, וכל זה, 5 lines from the end, היה סיבה מהקדוש ברוך הוא שיגיעו הברכות ליעקב דווקא באופן כזה, כאשר יברא במקומו. It's because God wanted the blessings to come to Yaakov specifically in this deceitful way, in this roundabout way. There's a reason for everything. We cannot understand everything, definitely not in this year. But God wanted all this to happen. That's why he created that. When she came, the first approach was not love at first sight, but fear at first sight. And because of that, that one thing led to that they didn't talk with each other well enough. And that led to the fact that she had to play all sorts of tricks for Yaakov to get the blessing specifically in this way. And, this week's Parsha, Yaakov right away gets punished. Don't think that you can lie and get away with it. The Torah is very clear about that. He runs away with his life and then he gets cheated by Lavan. Is that not obvious? That the Midrashim bring it out, that clearly it's tit for tat. You tricked your father, you're going to get tricked by your father-in-law. Right? So it's not like it's an easy thing to lie and to cheat. That the Torah doesn't condone that. In the end, we have to understand why it had to be that way. But in any case, the Netziv says that this element, that there was a little bit too much fear in the relationship of Yitzchak and Rivka. It's a little bit daring to say that, our forefathers and foremothers, they're supposed to be perfect. They're supposed to have a perfect relationship. They were prophets. They were holy. It's true. But they're human. But they're human as well. And why do I bring this Netziv? And I brought it, I think, last year too. Do you remember? You don't remember. So it's okay. Because I think it's so important. An essential element to any good marriage is to have open communication, to have good communication. And if you're thinking things and you can't discuss it openly, that's not a good it's not a good sign. You can get by. They got by. They lived. They had children. They had grandchildren. Until today, here we are. They're great grandchildren. So Baruch Hashem. But it creates problems. Once I was just finished. Ve'ilu aita Rivka im isha. If Rivka would have been with her husband, Kemo Sarah v'Rachel im anshehem, with that clear communication, like Sarah was with Avram and Rachel was with Yaakov, lo haya mikia b'zeh ofen. The brachot would not have come to pass in this way. Ve'akol b'hashgacha pratit merosh. That's why, going back to the beginning, that's why it was providential that Rivka should come, the Yitzchak, shtagia Rivka Yitzchak b'shah tibahel mimeno, at the time that she should be awestruck by him. It's all part of God's plan. But regardless, in terms of the plan, we have to be sensitive to this issue of communication in relationships, and how, like I like to say, that it's like the oil that greases the wheels. Sometimes I say it's love which greases the wheels, but the also communication. Communication, if you can't talk to each other clearly and openly and try to convince each other, you don't have to agree on everything, then you're asking for trouble. And in the end, you might end up with all sorts of deceit here, and then one brother trying to kill the other, and all hell breaks loose. And to this day, we have Esav versus Yaakov, Esav son of Yaakov.
You can't blame Rivka, and you can't blame Rivka for Esav. This was from Hashem. This was a test from Hashem.
It's all from Hashem. It's clearly all from Hashem. But the Netziv is not blaming her either. He's saying God set it up that way. But the key point that I'm bringing out is that what's the way that he set up? What he set up is that they had a relationship with not very good communication, or not as good as it should have been. Like Sarah and Avram had better, and Rachel and Yaakov had better. It's more natural for the wife to be able to come to the husband and to say, listen, this is not good, and you got to do this, and you got to work things out. And for a woman just to be cowering in the corner and not even afraid to speak up, that's not a healthy relationship. That's what I'm taking out of the Netziv. His Perush, in terms of why doesn't even tell us why the brachot had to be received by Yaakov in this way, That's later on. He goes on. It's a wonderful commentary on the Torah. But for my purposes, I like that at the beginning, it's actually a later pasuk, but it says clearly that Yitzchak did have love with Rivka. It made a point. It didn't have to be. Could be they could have had a loveless marriage. Love wasn't always part of marriage throughout human history. Much of marriage is economics and biology and genealogy, but that was the first netziv. That it's actually second in the parsha, where he says the Torah stressed that Yitzchak loved her. It wasn't that just he brought her and she became his wife. He did love her, and there was love, but there was a lack of communication, or a unique form of education. The mix of love and fear got threw things out of whack, as opposed to in contrast to the other avot and imahot.
Do you think she overcame her?
According to the way it's described here, she never did. She never came in the fear.
How long was Yaakov in Haran?
I don't know. I mean, we don't. She doesn't speak. She doesn't speak after the end of this parsha. She doesn't come back.
Maybe this is her, mifchan, her test.
Could be.
She marries a guy that's come off the.
We don't know if it ever changed.
Mizbeach.
This is years later. How old are Yaakov and Esav? I mean, this is years after this prophecy of the pregnancy and all that. They're adults. He's going out to hunt, right? And apparently, she's still not talking freely with him. She's still not convincing him. And there's another perush about education. I'll just throw in if we have a few minutes. We have a few minutes till 1:10, right? So there's a famous Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch speaks about when you educate children. Why did Esav turn out so bad? They came from the same household. Yitzchak was telling them Torah stories on the parsha. I don't know what parsha he was reading to them. It must have been Bereshit. But he was sending them to the same schools. They were getting this. They had the same parents. They were all eating kosher food. Yitzchak, their father, was a holy man praying. He must have taught them how to say Modani together. They were twins. What's the problem? Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch says, that's exactly the problem. He gave them the same education.
They had different characters.
They had different characters. They needed different schools. They needed different approaches. And Esav needs the type of educational methodology and the type of activities which are appropriate for an Esav. And Yaakov, what's appropriate for him? And but there's many different interpretations for why things turned out the way they did. But that's also a beautiful idea of you've got to intimately know who the people are, and be able to talk to them on their level, talk to them for what's appropriate to them. So we started off with, of course, relationships between husband and wife, and the importance of being able to talk to each other honestly. This was just an additional little piece about education. But getting back to the relationships, I found, in my experience with various couples over the years, that sometimes there's a lot of fear from talking openly and saying what you really feel, what you really think. And you have to, what do they say nowadays? We got to create safe space. Right? It's a catchword in America now. This is safe space. You can say anything you want now. It's sad but true that many couples don't feel that they have safe space. If I'm going to say this, he's going to think that. And then he's going to do that, and then he's going to do that, and that'll be the end of our marriage. Many, especially women, I think more than men, they think about this, what it means, what he's going to say, and what she's going to say, and what he thinks and that. And then, okay, so I won't say anything. There's so much going on underneath. It never gets expressed. So it's very important in a marriage to create a safe space. Now, sometimes it's just such extreme People are insecure about the relationship, especially a new relationship for young couples, or just trying to make it work. And they feel it's better not to say anything. We'll leave it, and it's not that important. But then it adds up. One more thing, it's not important. I don't want to. Yeah, but one more thing. I hate that he does that, but it's not really important. I really want the relationship there. I won't say anything. And then, of course, it all explodes at some later point. And once it explodes, then it's harder to repair. So this idea of being able to have a good communication. Let me give you an example. When the wife says to the husband, "Listen, I'll sit down. I want to talk to you about something." Uh-oh. Right away, you're thinking, "Oh my gosh, what did I do now?" Or, "What's going on? It sounds like it's so dramatic. It's so big." And then it turns out, 9 times out of 10, that we were supposed to go out for the evening with that couple, but I don't really like her anymore, so let's cancel the dinner date or whatever it was. It's a tiny little thing. Or something is like, it's the opposite. He says to her, "Listen, we really have to talk." And she's thinking, "Oh, we're going to get divorced. Oh no, he hates me. Oh no, he thinks I'm not pretty anymore." And really what he wanted to say was that, "You put your toothbrush on the left side of the sink, and it drives me crazy. I want you to put it into the bowl on the right-hand side of the sink, because otherwise it just makes everything dirty." And that's all he meant to say. But everybody, they think in their head, what does he mean? What's he going to think? See, sometimes it's important to say, you can have conversations. I want to talk to you about something. You can put the other person at ease. You could say, it's something small. I want to talk to you, but it's something small. It's not. Don't think I'm going to divorce you. I just want to rearrange what we're. We have too much of that pea soup. I don't really like pea soup. Oh my gosh! 20 years the guy's eating pea soup because he was afraid to open up his mouth to say that she never knew. If he would have just said something, he would have been able to be happy. So it's really important to keep those lines of communications clear. And when you don't have a regular, well-oiled way of communicating, little problems become big ones. And sometimes the distance just grows as opposed to working itself out. And talking is the best method that we have. Obviously, many couples, they have another method, which eventually it's like you lean on it too much, and it's not enough. Some couples just instead of talking, we'll just go to bed. Let's just go to bed. Oh, we enjoy each other's company, and that's enough. We don't but they don't talk, and ultimately that's not enough to make a relationship work. You have to find a way that you spend time talking about big things and little things. Not everything is about where we should send the kids to school. Not everything is such a big thing if, really think we should join a different community and I want you to learn more Torah, or you should cover your hair in this way or that way. Those are big things. What about just the little things about, really little parts of life about, could you pick up the shopping today or pick up the kids because I want to go to this, to work out at the gym a little bit longer today. Just little things. You have to have a clear and open communication as much as possible. Foster that safe space because if you don't, it's very, very dangerous. And ultimately, the Netziv saying this was God's plan. He wanted it to be that way for whatever purposes. But the very fact that he says, Yitzchak and Rivka did not have the same type of relationship, the same good type of relationship that Sarah and Avraham had, and Rachel and Yaakov had. We see there, those mothers are speaking up much more. Rivka works behind the scenes and so rearranges things. God wanted it to be that way, but hopefully he won't want it to be that way in my marriage, in your marriage, and in your relationships. Where the ideal is not to be tricky, and to not convince or talk about things with your husband. It's the ideal is to have a clear communication.
In defense again, Rivka.
Please.
Yaakov was his father's son. Innocent, pure, studied Torah, didn't lie, told the truth. And to become Israel, he had to learn when he needs to be deceitful, when he needs to be like Esau. And this could not have happened any other way.
Mm-hmm.
And for Yaakov, his marriages, that's a whole story. I mean, they say that with Rachel, who he loved, he was Yaakov, but with Leah, which is less, he was Yisrael. And his sons from Yehuda, the tension between Yehuda and Yosef.
I agree, and I think the Netziv agrees. He says it had to be this way. God has his reasons, and it's not just that we're explaining the why this happened. God made it happen this way, but we're learning, pulling out from this discussion that what's this way? What's this way? This way got affected through the mechanism of the breakdown of communication. That was my main point. Beseder, B'ezrat Hashem, we should have great relationships, and we should lucky to have 12 tribes like Yaakov had 12 amazing children who all stayed within the fold, and we should be so to educate ourselves and our children in a good way. Seder, Shavua Tov.